Welcome back to Hot Air, where this month we're blowing the lid off gay history, politics, pop culture, and everything else queer folks aren't supposed to talk about. But we do anyway because it is Pride Month. And we're not just dancing in the streets this month, we are digging into the stories that made the freedom to dance in the streets possible in the first place. On the previous episode of Hot Air with attorney Mario, we discussed marriage equality and the Supreme Court case that made same-sex marriage legal across the entire nation. But I didn't really get super deep into it. I actually forgot how to pronounce it many times. So today we are going to go back to 2015, a moment that changed the lives of millions of queer Americans, including mine. And of course, I'm talking about the Supreme Court case, Obergefell v. Hodges. You might remember the headlines. Love wins. Rainbow lights were on the White House. Tears were streaming down cheeks on courtroom steps. At the time, I really didn't understand the gravity that this day would hold. But this isn't just a story about a court case. It's about a man in Ohio who just wanted to be recognized as a husband when his own husband died. And that man is Jim Obergefell, and how his love became the tipping point for marriage equality in America. So buckle up, because this one always makes me very emotional. I've listened to a few other podcasts about it, read a few blogs about it, talked with attorney Mario about it, and it really pulls at my heartstrings. So grab a tissue. Part 1. The love story that started it all. Let's start not in Washington, but in Cincinnati, Ohio, where Jim Obergefell met John Arthur, the love of his life. They met in 1992, and like many queer couples in the early 90s, their love wasn't something they could show freely. This was still the age of don't ask, don't tell, sodomy laws, and Ellen DeGeneres hadn't even come out of the closet yet. But Jim and John built a life together anyway. And I just love their names. Jim and John. It's just so cute. Jim and John Obergefell. Obergefell. I still feel like I'm pronouncing it wrong. But anyway, their names are just so cute. So fast forward to 2011. After nearly 20 years together, John was diagnosed with ALS, a neurodivergent disease that slowly robs the body of its ability to move, speak, and breathe. The diagnosis, of course, was a gut punch. But instead of retreating into the shadows, Jim and John decided to make the most of the time that they had left. In 2013, with John's health rapidly declining, the couple decided they wanted to get legally married. But there was a problem. Ohio didn't allow same-sex marriage. Not only that, but Ohio refused to recognize any same-sex marriages performed in other states. Ohio would recognize your marriage if you married your first cousin in a state that allowed it, which is incest, hello, but they would not recognize same-sex marriage. Take that in for a second. That is wild to me. You can marry your cousin, Ohio will recognize it, but you can't marry somebody of the same sex. So what did they do? They chartered a medical jet, literally airlifted themselves to Maryland, where same-sex marriage was legal. John was so ill that he had to remain on a stretcher the entire time, but they exchanged vows on the tarmac, and I just got, Josh, hold it together, full body chills. God, man, maybe I'm just really emotional this month. I don't know. Just a short ceremony with tears, love. They flew back to Ohio, husbands in love, but not in the eyes of the law. And that is where Jim's fight really began. Part 2. A death certificate that said stranger. Shortly after the wedding, John's condition worsened. In October 2013, just 3 months after their marriage, John Arthur died. Now, losing your partner is devastating enough, but Ohio added insult to grief. When Jim tried to make sure John's death certificate listed him as a surviving spouse, the state refused. Another moment to let something sink in. Let that sink in. This man just lost the love of his life, and the government essentially said, we don't see you, and we don't care. So Ohio law declared that their marriage, although legally performed in Maryland, was null and void within state borders. As far as the state was concerned, they were legal strangers. I can't imagine what it would be like to deal with that on top of the love of your life dying. That wasn't just bureaucratic cruelty, that was a denial of dignity. And Jim Obergefell said, "Not today, Satan, not the fuck today." I literally would not be able to cope with this. I would have burned every building to the ground. I probably shouldn't even say that, but I would have burned some buildings to the ground. With the help of civil rights attorneys, Jim filed a lawsuit against the state of Ohio, specifically the director of the Ohio Department of Health, Richard Hodges, who was tasked with enforcing the state's anti-marriage equality laws. Oh, that's a mouthful and a half. And that lawsuit, it would ignite a fire that reached the steps of the Supreme Court. Part 3, the legal landscape and why this case mattered. So let's zoom out here for a second. I love that phrase. Ever since Stefania taught me that. Zoom out. Look at the big picture. We are zooming out. Before Obergefell v. Hodges, the fight for marriage equality was being waged in courts across the country. By 2015, 36 states had legalized same-sex marriage either through legislation, ballot measures, or court decisions. But 14 states, including Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Michigan, still had bans in place. And here is where the legal tension boiled over. What happens when you're married in one state but not recognized in another? What happens when one state says husband and another says roommate, or in this case, says stranger? That's exactly what Obergefell v. Hodges asked. Does the 14th Amendment require a state to license or recognize a marriage between two people of the same sex? Jim's case was actually one of several that the Supreme Court just bundled together in one mega case under the title Obergefell v. Hodges. Others included couples wanting to adopt children, couples seeking recognition for legal benefits, and others who simply wanted to be married in their home state, which is such a simple ask. Together, these cases became the final legal battle for marriage equality. Part 4, inside the Supreme Court. We're going to April 28th, 2015, when oral arguments begin. On one side, advocates for dignity, equality, and the freedom to marry. On the other, attorneys arguing for states' rights, religious liberty, and traditional marriage. I had a really good opportunity to make a joke about oral arguments beginning, and I totally missed that. Add one in there. But at the heart of all of this, human lives. Human lives were at the center of this. Real love, families with kids, widows, veterans, people just trying to be seen and protected by the country that they pay taxes to. Like literally, why are you taking my taxes, but you're not even giving me rights across the country? Wild. Jim Obergefell sat in the court listening to legal arguments about whether his marriage, his grief, and his dignity mattered under the Constitution. And I don't need to remind you, but I will remind you that when the court finally ruled, the country changed. Part 5, June 26, 2015. Love wins. Exactly 12 years after the landmark decision in Lawrence v. Texas, which struck down sodomy laws, which, as I stated in a previous episode, is just anal sex, the way the gays all have sex. So sodomy was illegal in an attempt to make gay sex illegal. So the Supreme Court delivered the decision in Obergefell v. Hodges. The vote was 5-4. Majority opinion written by Justice Anthony Kennedy. And what he wrote instantly became iconic. Here's what he said. No union is more profound than marriage, for it embodies the highest ideals of love, fidelity, devotion, sacrifice, and family. In forming a marital union, two people become something greater than once they were. Their hope is not to be condemned to live in loneliness, excluded from one of civilization's oldest institutions. They ask for equal dignity in the eyes of the law. The Constitution grants them that right. Cue the tears. Cue the rainbow flags. Cue the history books. Fuck me right up. I really don't know why I wasn't paying more attention when this happened. I was here in the United States. I really must have been in a world of my own. From that day forward, same-sex marriage was legal in all 50 states. No more loopholes, no more patchwork laws, no more disrespect on a death certificate. Love fucking won. Part 6, the aftermath and why it still matters. You'd think this would be happily ever after, right? Well, yes and no. Obergefell v. Hodges was a monumental victory, but like every LGBTQ plus win in history, it sparked backlash. So here's some things that have happened since the ruling. Religious exemption laws have popped up, giving businesses a pass to discriminate. I said this in the last episode, but marriage equality doesn't mean equal treatment. Businesses can still deny us access to things like wedding cakes, venues, flower arrangements, all the things that go into the fun part of wedding planning. We can be denied these simple pleasures based on someone's religious beliefs. A wedding venue can just say, no, no thanks, no gays here, and there is nothing we can do about it if it is due to their religious belief. And that, in my opinion, is not equality. The Supreme Court, which is now stacked with a conservative majority, has shown a willingness to revisit precedents like Roe v. Wade. In 2022, Justice Clarence Thomas literally suggested that Obergefell should be reconsidered, in quotes, reconsidered. So if you're wondering why we still need pride and why we still fight, why we still tell these stories, well, that is why, because people still think that this should be up for discussion and it should be revisited. It's because rights are not permanent if we stop fighting for them. Mario said this really well in the last episode. He said we kind of stopped fighting once 2015 came around and Obergefell v. Hodges, we had that landmark decision and we could get married. He said we kind of stopped fighting. And, it must have felt good for the people that were aware and the people that were fighting to like sit back for a hot second. We really accomplished something, but the fight continues and we kind of need to get back on that train. We got to remain strong, loud, and proud. Part 7, why Jim Obergefell is a hero. Jim Obergefell didn't set out to be an activist. He just wanted to honor his husband. He wanted their life, their love, their loss to mean something. And by refusing to sit down, shut up, and quietly grieve, Jim became the face of one of the most important civil rights cases of our generation. He did not just fight for himself. He fought for all of us. And kind of unwillingly so. This just happened to him and he took it by the reins, grabbed the bull by the horns, and went for it. So yeah, Jim Obergefell, hero status unlocked. Part 8, current anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. While the Obergefell decision should have cemented equality under the law, 2025 has seen a frightening wave of anti-LGBTQ plus bills sweeping state houses, targeting trans youth, censorship, sports, and even marriage. So let's go through a few of these things, just in case you're unaware. Number 1, banning LGBTQ plus student clubs, pronouns, and curriculum. Texas Senate Bill 12, awaiting Governor Abbott's signature, would ban student clubs based on sexual orientation or gender identity. It would also forbid educators from using names or pronouns that differ from assigned sex at birth and outlaw all DEI programs, which is not unlike a Don't Say Gay statewide law. Similar censorship-style laws are advancing in Florida, Iowa, Indiana, Missouri, and Ohio, forcing outing, misgendering, and erasure in schools. Number 2, trans youth under siege, healthcare, identity, and sports. By mid-2025, at least 54 anti-trans laws have been enacted, banning gender-affirming care from trans youth and restricting name and pronoun changes, with 575, that is not a joke, 575 anti-LGBTQ plus bills introduced nationwide, just in 2025 alone. Kansas, Alabama, Nebraska, Idaho, Georgia, South Dakota, and others have outlawed puberty blockers, hormones, surgeries for minors, which, wherever you stand on that, I believe that this should be a choice made by an individual and their family. That's what I believe anyway, and I don't really like to talk on it too much because I am not trans, so I feel like that's like me talking about telling a black person's story. I'm not black. I will have my friend on soon who is a trans woman, and we are going to get into much more detail, and I will allow her to speak on how she feels about that. Because really, I don't really know what to say without feeling like I'm like overstepping or stepping on somebody's toes. Georgia's Riley Gaines Act bans trans girls from sports and mandates sex-segregated facilities strictly by birth sex, which is in effect as of July 2025. Number 3, drag and pride. Public spaces are under attack. God, Pride used to be such a fun celebration. This year feels very different. Missouri, Arizona, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Montana, and others have introduced or passed drag bans. Just so crazy. Defining drag as adult cabaret or obscene, which criminalizes public drag performances. Meanwhile, states like Texas, Utah, Idaho, and Montana are outlawing pride flags and other LGBTQ plus symbols in public schools and government buildings, which have fines attached should you decide to fly the pride flag. Number 4, religious resurgence and marriage equality reversal. The Southern Baptist 2025 Convention passed a resolution calling for the overturn of Obergefell, repealing LGBTQ plus civil rights, and permanently defunding Planned Parenthood, all non-binding but morally charged. Meanwhile, conservative lawmakers in Georgia, Texas, Montana, Idaho, and other states are pushing bills that aim to redefine marriage or challenge Obergefell's legitimacy through constitutional amendments. So, what does all of this mean for the country? These laws create a chaotic as fuck map. We are accepted in some places and targeted in others. Youth mental health is at risk. We're restricting expression, pronouns, and just general support, and that all correlates with a rising mental health crisis among LGBTQ plus youth. Organized efforts are already underway to challenge marriage equality, not just in courts, but through cultural messaging. The backlash that followed Roe's overturn shows just how fragile that rights can be if we do not stay vigilant and mobilized. So there you have it. Before I let you go, let's boil this down real quick. Over 700 anti-LGBTQ plus bills are in motion across more than 50 states. Despite court challenges, many enactments remain in force. Fighting them will require legal battles, political action, and community resilience. So, what is our takeaway here? Well, first, love wins, but only when we show up, when we vote, when we fight, and when we tell our stories. Marriage equality is the floor, not the ceiling. We still need to protect trans kids, LGBTQ plus healthcare, anti-discrimination laws, and safe spaces for everyone. So, to Jim and to John, my two little favorite cutie pies, and to every couple who lived and loved in the shadows so we could marry in the light, I say thank you. We have to keep this fight going in their honor and for the ones who come next. So, thanks again for listening to Hot Air with me, Joshua Robert. I think this is the first time I didn't say that in the beginning. If this episode moved you, share it. Leave a review, 5 stars. It really helps me with the algorithm. The more reviews, the more people will find my podcast. Tell your friends. Tell your ex. Why not tell your ex? Text your stupid ex right now. Tell your chosen family. And I've got way more LGBTQ plus guests coming this month, a lot of history drops coming your way, and just fun little hot flash episodes every Friday. If you've missed those hot flash episodes, they're short, they're sweet, they're about 10 minutes. Those come out on Friday. Our full-length episodes come out on Tuesday. And remember, we are not lucky to be here. We fucking earned it. Oh, and don't forget to follow me on TikTok and Instagram at _hotairpod. Okay, that's it. Stay gay. See you next Tuesday.